What's up YouTube and hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Juju and in this video we'll be going over all of the new war cards in the new expansion for Gods Unchained, Mortal Judgment. So war is in an interesting spot in the metagame right now. It's one of those classes that have been flying under the radar, but I think it's still like really strong. Like aggro war is very good. They got like a lot of Viking support and relic support. I think control war is still a sleeper pick. Control decks have been out of favor though because of like the Jalamar meta, but now that Jalamar has been kind of like nerfed, we should see more control variants coming through. And mid-range war is also an option. So war is actually pretty strong. It's just not as popular as it used to be, but I highly expect war to get a couple of buffs in this coming expansion. So we will see. As far as the cards go, these are my first time seeing these cards. So of course, take it with a grain of salt. And if I miss anything, feel free to help me out in the comments below, right? Share your thoughts or your insights. I think it's always nice when we get to share our opinions on YouTube. So without further ado, let's begin. First up, for our commons, we have Valka's Favored. Okay, this is a 1 mana 2/1 Tempt Fate Viking. So with the Tempt Fate cards, it's a little hard to judge just because of like what buffs are available at Tempt Fate, you know? But for this card in particular, I think depending on the buff, it could be very good, right? So I think it's a decent 1-drop because of Tempt Fate, but 2/1 is very understated, so the Tempt Fate effect has to be good in order for it to be played. But it's a 1 mana Viking, and oh, these cards also have implications in Deception class, by the way. So if you haven't seen that video where we go over all the new Deception cards, feel free to go back and watch that video. But anyways, so with that being said, Valka's Favored is pretty decent. Next up, we have Lycaeus Postulant, which is a 1 mana 2/2, empower 2, give 1/1 to this creature. Okay, so it could be a 1 mana 2/2 or a 3 mana 3/3. That's not too good, but it's also a 1 mana war creature, and that could has some implications with the new Deception cards too. As far as I'm concerned, it's a decent card, but that's pretty much it. I'm only playing this card in an aggro Olympian deck for war. Next up, we have Lupine Fanatic. This is our 1 mana 1/2 Afterlife. Deal 1 damage to each creature. Okay, so that's pretty good. Deal 1 damage to each creature. It can serve as an AoE, which is nice. 1 mana 1/2 is pretty understated for its stat line, but I mean, it's definitely a card that can get its mana's worth from its effect, right? So it's a pretty decent 1-drop. I'm not too sure if I am must including this in decks, but it's definitely an option to consider. Cool. Next up, we have Savage Strike. This is our 1 mana spell. Deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. Empower 2, also deal 1 damage to each other creature. Okay, so 2 damage to an enemy creature, also deal 1 damage to each other creature. So for 3 mana, you can possibly deal a lot of damage, which is pretty nice, honestly. It reminds me of Auric Rush. I honestly think there might be better options than this card, but it's a decent removal option nonetheless, so I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Next up, we have Wolf Cult Vanguard. This is our 2 mana 3/1 Olympian with Blitz. Empower 2, give Twin Strike and +2 health to this creature. Oh, that's not bad. So for a 4 mana, it becomes a 4 mana 3/3 with Blitz and Twin Strike. That's actually kind of decent. Blitz is a good effect for sure. The 1 health does hurt it though, so I'm probably playing this either as spot removal or I'm playing this with the empowered effect. Cool, moving on, we have Raider Captain. This is our 5 mana 5/5. Roar, randomly give 1/1 to a friendly creature. Oh, that's not bad. So it's a 5 mana 6/6 worth of stats. It's actually pretty decent. It's a good mid-range option for war. That's what I'm thinking. Cool. Next up, we have Hero in Training. This is our 2 mana 1/3 Viking. Roar, give your relic 1 strength. Okay, that's not bad. 2 mana 1/3 is understated for sure, but because you give your relic 1 strength, it could be a big deal. Honestly, though, it's pretty understated for a 2 mana minion, so I don't know if I'd play it. But it can see play in certain relic war decks, so definitely give it a try when you play this card. Next up, we have the Fox's Venture. This is a 1 mana spell. Give Tempt Fate to a creature in your hand. Empower 2. Also give it 3/2. Wow. Okay. So for 3 mana, you give a creature Tempt Fate and 3/2. Honestly, it's not bad. It's not bad, but it feels pretty passive for a class that likes to stay active. So I'm not too sure, but it's definitely a card to consider when you're buffing cards. And 3 mana, give a minion 3/2 and then Tempt Fate is pretty good. It's just a little slower at 3 mana. So I don't know. This card is worth experimenting, but I think out of the spells that we have, Out of Its Misery is still the golden standard when it comes to cards like this. And it can compete with Out of Misery, but not really. So yeah, unless you high roll the Tempt Fate, and that could be a possibility on its own, but sometimes you just want to mitigate the RNG, right? Cool. Next up, we have Mountain Watcher. This is a 3 mana 4/3 Empower 3. Give 3/2 to this creature. Okay, so for 6 mana, turns into a 6/5 or 7/5. Sorry, it's decent. Not really something I'd look forward to. However, the 3 mana 4/3 is a very good stat line, so maybe you see it play without the Empower effect. Or maybe you play it solely for playing it at 3 mana, and possibly if you run into a situation where you're running into a longer game, you use the Empower effect to create a 7/5 on board. That's something that can see play. I think it's decent at best. Cool. Next up, we have Lycaos Adherent. This is a 3 mana 3/4 Empower 1. Give 1 strength to each creature and deal 1 damage to them. Okay. 3 mana 3/4 is a good stat line. It's an Olympian, so it gets that support. Empower for an additional mana, you get to give 1 strength to each creature, not just your own, but yours and your opponent's, and deal 1 damage to them. I could see this being a benefit to some decks. Honestly, I probably wouldn't play the Empower effect unless I knew it benefited me more than my opponent. But the body is very good, so I would definitely consider this card if I need to fill something at the 3 mana slot. Even though OD kind of takes up that mantle, right? So that's something interesting to consider. Next up, we have Cunning Challenger. This is an Empower 1, Tempt Fate. 6 mana 6/7. So 6 mana 6/7 is actually a decent stat line. Tempt Fate is good for the additional mana. I think it's okay. Six mana is definitely very slow, but it's a pretty big Viking, and it's honestly a good choice if you're running a mid-range Viking deck, right? So you're very good top end, or it's a decent top end at best. I think this can see play in certain situations, in certain builds. Okay, next up we have White Fur Guard. This is your 6 mana 7/6 Empower 3. Give 7/7 to this creature. Okay, so you reach late game. You play this card for 9 mana. It becomes a 14/13. That's not bad. It's a little slow for my opinion. And honestly, it's a good option for top end mid range, but there are probably better options. But it's decent. It's decent. If you don't have any better options, you can play this card. Cool. Next up, we have Single Combat. This is our 2 mana spell. Target a friendly and enemy creature. Your creature performs an extra attack on the enemy creature. Empower 2. The friendly creature gains 2/2 before it attacks. Okay, cool. So, this is good in a couple of ways. It allows for the creature you choose, that's your own creature, to attack face before it trades with something else. It gives it an extra attack, so it could provide value there. If you empower it for 4 mana, you get to do that and give your friendly creature 2/2, so increase its survivability. So that's an interesting thing. It feels a little slow to me, and it's a conditional form of removal. So there are definitely better removal options for sure, but it's definitely worth testing. I just think I think it's decent / mediocre, and there are better removal options. Moving on, we have Skullkin Valkyrie. This is our 2 mana 1/3. When a creature takes damage, a random friendly creature gains 1 strength. Okay, that's pretty good. Very good card to stay on board. 2 mana 1/3 is understated, but at least it has 3 health, so there's some sort of survivability there. But it is kind of conditional. When this creature takes damage, a random friendly creature, so you need another card to proc its effect. And honestly, it feels kind of slow for the stats that it gets. So yeah, I'm going to have to say that this card is mediocre. Okay, next up, we have Fate-Led Menace, or Fate-Led Menace, however you want to say it. It's a 2 mana 2/2 with Tempt Fate. When this creature survives damage, give it 1 health. Okay, cool. So Tempt Fate hopefully gives it like a protected or a ward maybe, or something along those lines, maybe a health buff. If that's the case, then I could totally see this card seeing play. But it's kind of weird. When this creature survives damage, you just give it 1 health. So I don't know. It seems mediocre, especially when Bladecaster is a thing, right? So maybe this Tempt Fate does something better. But yeah, I don't know. I digress. I'd rather just pick the Bladecaster and reduce the chance of RNG. Next up, we have Overhoned Spear. This is your 2 mana 4/1 relic. Blitz. After you attack with this relic, destroy it. Okay, cool. I mean, it has 1 durability anyways, right? So it's basically a 2 mana deal 4 damage. And it's not bad. Definitely not bad. It's definitely a good spot removal option for war. But it can't take any like relic buffs that increase durability, because it's just not gonna matter, right? So you basically attack with this relic and take some damage and be done with it. Cool. Next up for our rares, we have Ironborn Disruptor. This is our 3 mana 2/4. After this creature attacks a god, your opponent discards a random creature from their hand with mana cost 3 or less. Oh, that's actually pretty decent disruption effect. 3 mana 2/4 is understated for sure, but the effect kind of makes up for it, because it makes your opponent discard a card from their hand if they have a mana cost a creature with cost 3 or less. That's definitely worth considering. Of course, it has to attack, so you either give it Blitz via other means, or no, it has to attack a god, so never mind. You can't even give it Blitz. You have to give it God Blitz. But it has to wait a turn for it to proc its effect. But if it does, it's pretty good disruption. If it doesn't, well, you just wasted 3 mana on a card that just got destroyed, right? So, interesting thing. I would say it's mediocre. Decent at best. Cool. Moving on, we have Headsman's Axe. This is a 3 mana 3/1 relic with God Blitz, which is nice. Empower 4, give 4 strength to this relic. So for 7 mana, you deal 4 damage, or 7 damage. Very underwhelming stats for a relic, especially the Empower effect, but I digress. And especially when you think about it too, isn't Ares like Peacemaker a thing still? Or not Ares Peacemaker, sorry, I'm thinking about the wrong thing. But that 3/2 relic with God Blitz for war, it's still a thing, right? So this makes this kind of redundant. Cool. Next up, we have Valka's Foreguard. This is a 4 mana 3/3 with Blitz, Tempt Fate. Okay, Blitz is good. Tempt Fate, if it gets like Protected or Twin Strike, that could also be good. So definitely a card to consider. 4 mana Viking is interesting. Yeah, but it's definitely a decent card. Cool. Next up, we have Flame Touched Paladin. This is our 4 mana 4/4 Olympian ability. Target a character. If it is an enemy, attack it. Otherwise, heal it for 3 health. Okay. Interesting. So this is a card with an ability that can attack or heal. That's kind of interesting to see. 4 mana 4/4 is understated for the stat line. However, and the ability means you have to wait a turn for it to like you be able to use it. So that's also bad, especially when you consider like the survivability of the card isn't very good, right? 4 health is actually pretty fragile in Gods Unchained. So I don't know. I can't get behind it. I think it's just decent, probably mediocre. Cool. Next up, we have Reckless Banneret. This is our 5 mana 4/4. Roar, give 2/1 to each other friendly creature. Empower 2, give 3/0 instead. You know what? That could be decent, especially in a swarm deck for sure. And if you want to pay the 7 mana to give 3, a 3 strength instead, I think that's overdoing it. I like the buff with the 2/1 buff though. I think when you play this card, you play this for the buff, and that would be okay. But now the question lies, is this card better than Overproof Brew or Red Frume Serum? I want to say no, but that's just my hunch. Other than that, you're not really playing this card for the body. You're playing this for the buff and the body, I guess. So, I digress, but I mean, it's a decent finisher option for a class that already has finisher options. Cool. Next up, we have Sign of Strife. This is our 3 mana 1/4 Aether. When this creature survives damage, give it 1/1. Okay, cool. So when it survives damage, maybe it deals 1 damage to itself. It becomes a 2/4, and so on and so on. So it basically just gains strength whenever it gets damaged. So I think it's decent. 3 mana 1/4 is not a good stat line, and it's pretty conditional as an effect, right? It needs to take damage, and then it needs to survive it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's not. I wouldn't really play it unless my deck was built around those types of effects. Like maybe you run the Talisman card. I forget the Talisman card in Divine Order that deals 1 damage. That has an ability where it deals damage to each creature. Maybe that's something you run with this card. Cool. Now we're moving on to our epics. As I check my audio. Cool. Awesome. I have the worst fear about doing these types of videos and then audio just not working. So thanks for bearing with me. Next up, we have Unrestrained Power for our epics. This is a 3 mana spell. Give 2 strength to your relic, empower 3, then double the strength of your... Ooh. Wow. That's actually pretty good. So 6 mana spell. You get to give 2 strength, then double it. If I'm thinking like Scythe of the Harvest here, that's buffed by I Need a Weapon. That's like what? 7? So Scythe of the Harvest gets buffed by I Need a Weapon, so it's a 5/3. Then it gets a 7 if you play this card, so it's a 7/3. And then if you use the Empower effect, it's 14/3. Ooh, with God Blitz, wow, it's not bad. Definitely a very good finisher for Relic War, for sure. This is something to keep an eye on. This is a card to keep an eye on. Cool, moving on to Mobilized. 2 mana spell. Reduce by 1 the cost of Empower cards in your hand. Empower 4. First draw 3 cards. I like this card. What are the other Empower cards? Any card that reduces a mana cost is always... You need to consider. Like, you always have to give it a closer look, and... This card seems very good in a deck that wants to run empowered cards. So, yeah. I would keep an eye out for this one, too. These epics are actually pretty good. Okay, cool. Moving on. Next up, we have Shield Maiden Scout. This is a 5 mana 3/5 with frontline. After this creature takes damage, give 1 strength to your empower creatures in your hand. Okay, cool. So that's also like a, I think it's a decent card. It takes damage, which is good because it has high health and it has hot frontline. So it's definitely going to get something, give the empower creatures in your hand some sort of buff. I mean, it just seems too slow for a 5 mana creature. It's definitely a decent option, but I'm leaning towards calling this card like decent and not like OP or broken or anything like that. But definitely a card to consider when you're running an empower deck. Whoa. Moving on to our legendaries, we have the Gods Unchained. Whoa. For 5? Okay. For 5 mana, if you have 100 favor, destroy your opponent's god. That makes me like want to make a meme deck out of this card. Because meme deck, I'm saying meme deck because one, it's really hard to achieve 100 favor in Gods Unchained. The card. Because, I don't think the game lasts that long for stuff like that to happen unless you're running like a really slow control deck. And you don't need to use a Sanctum. But wow. This is a very interesting card. For sure. Definitely loses against like Thief Deception though. Like one Cutthroat Imsight could totally just screw over the deck. But I mean, if you're even then, right? I'm just thinking to get 100 favor, you should win. Like if you're at 100 favor, you should be winning already. So this is like one of those things where you're just winning more. I don't know. This is probably a meme win condition, but it seems like a fun meme condition. I'm gonna coin that phrase, meme condition. But yeah, it's definitely a card that I would look forward to seeing people try. Like content creators should definitely try making a deck around this card and see if they can like finesse it somehow. But anyways, that's my opinion on the card. If you already have 100 favor, you should be winning the game anyways. But I hope this card comes with a really cool animation to win. That would make this card fun to play. Anyways, I digress. Let's move on to the next card. Next card is Commander Pyros. So this is a 3 mana 3/3. When a friendly creature survives damage, give it 1/1. Okay. So again, with the creature surviving damage part, you give it 1/1. That's pretty nice. But then again, like when a card takes damage, you're not really buffing the health. You're just healing it 1, and then you're buffing the strength, right? I think it's decent. I don't know. Like it's the thing about these friendly creature survives damage cards is they're a little conditional. You need to have a consistent way to proc these effects in order for it to happen. And that goes into deck building. And sometimes by including those cards, it can limit the power level of your deck, right? Because those cards are inherently like, deal 1 damage to every creature. Or, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I digress. I think the archetype is going to be fun to play, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be strong in the metagame. I could be wrong though, so take my advice with a grain of salt, but I'm just saying. Cool. And last but not least, for our final card for the war cards, it'll be Garen the Red. This is a 4 mana 3/4 Viking. At the end of your turn, reduced by 1 the cost of each empower card in your hand. This card is good. Yeah. It's a 4 mana 3/4 Emperor Thorosian effect. basically, if you have X Empower cards in your hand, you are gaining X amount of tempo, right? So if I have 5 Empower cards in my hand, I reduce by 1 the cost of each card. Yeah, I'm saving myself 5 mana over the course I play those cards. And, okay, this card procs at the end of the turn. So you're always going to at least get 1 proc out of this card. If this card survives, you get more, but I mean, 4 mana 3/4 is debatable if it's survivable or not, depending on like how you order your minions, like the way you play your minions, and how you layer your threats. But this card is definitely possibly one of the better cards in the set. Yeah. I'm looking at all the other cards, and I'm thinking that this might be one of the best cards we've reviewed so far. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that card. If you want to know my opinion on what War got, closing thoughts. The Empower cards are going to be interesting to see and judge because, honestly, I think Garen just makes the Empower cards, so much better. And then also Mobilized too. Like Mobilized and Garen make me think that Tempo War with Empower synergies could be very good. Yeah, just based off of like what I've seen. So yeah, I mean, and the Empower minions seem pretty decent. Like this Mountain Watcher is a decent like minion alone without the Empower effect. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, that's what I think about these war cards. Obviously, the Empower effects are probably going to be worth a try because of Garen and Mobilize. What is that called? What it's called? Mobilize? Yeah, Mobilized. The damage buff this card after taking damage cards could be good, but I mean, experience tells me that those effects are too conditional to be consistent, really. So it'd be interesting to see if it breaks the meta or it becomes stronger because of the added support. But yeah, in terms of what catches my eye, it's definitely the Empower cards. Garen might be the best card in the set, along with Mobilize. And yeah, so far at least. We're only in video 4 of the series, so it's going to be interesting to see what the other cards are. But first impression, yeah, the best card for War at the moment will be Garen the Red. And then it'd be interesting to see if people like pull off the Gods Unchained win condition. I think that would be fun to do. Maybe I'll try to make a deck out of it. We'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much my closing thoughts, y'all. If you liked the video and the analysis, please go ahead and click that thumbs up button on the video. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and check out the rest of the series. Yeah, and if I miss anything, please again go ahead and list on the comments below your thoughts on the new war cards. Yeah, let's start theory crafting because it seems like Mortal Judgment is going to be a really fun set. Other than that, y'all, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Peace.